Monday, November 13th at 4:45. I'm calling this Human Resources Committee to order with a quorum present in chambers. We're going to start with approval of the October 9th, 2023 minutes. They're in your packet. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to accept. Motion by Gisselman, second by Killian. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Human Resources Report for October 2023. It's in your packet. Any questions for our director? Okay, if not, we'll just place that on file. I'm going to do some moving of the agenda. I am going to move up number 4 to number 3. Discussion and possible action approving the request to the minimum qualifications for a police officer in the City of Wausau Police and Fire Commission Manual.
Good evening. I think most of what we're looking for is included in the materials we sent. Just a brief history, and there's one correction, which is we're not asking the council or this committee to change our PFC manual. The Police and Fire Commission does that. However, the city sets the minimum qualifications for any employee, or the council does. And step 1 is to go through this council. Step 2 is to have a resolution that goes through this committee, then the resolution goes through the council, and the PFC can change the PFC manual. So for starters, the state of Wisconsin has minimum requirements to be a police officer. And the way the requirements for the state are set up, that at the completion of your 5th year of service as a police officer, you have to have attained 60 college credits and completed the academy. The City of Wausau has always held itself to a higher standard and required 60 college credits in order to be considered to even apply to the City of Wausau. That was changed when the state started allocating 20 college credits for the completion of recruit school. So we dropped it from 60 college credits to 40, because if you went to recruit school, you'd get 20 credits and then you'd have 60 from the first day you worked for us. And that has worked well and will probably continue to work well for quite some time. However, times are a little bit different, and we are in a situation right now where we've been through our first round of interviews with candidates. Our number 1 candidate, by a long shot, does not meet our minimum standards. This is an individual who has worked for 10 years as a professional police officer full-time in Lake Havasu, Arizona. Number 1, I am judging this individual's character. He's exactly what this community wants in a police officer, and his professional law enforcement resume is very, very impressive. But in Arizona, it requires 0 college credits. So he graduated from high school, got a job in a jail, and got hired as a police officer out of that jail, and has been a police officer for the last 10 years. So what we are asking for is to change the minimum qualifications from what we have to match that of the state of Wisconsin requirements, which is to not have a minimum, and allow us the flexibility when, on the rare occasions that we have a great candidate come forward, that we can hire that individual. Right now we can't, and it would be a significant loss for us. I think we've talked numerous times about the challenge it is finding quality police officers to police our city, and it seems to me it benefits all of us if we have the ability to be more flexible, to get a look at police officers from other states that want to move to Wisconsin. I know for a fact this individual has other departments in the state who said, we'll hire you, because they don't have those same requirements that we do. So our ask is to hopefully agree with me that it's trust the police department to hire the best people. I can tell you, we would never let it take 5 years for someone to achieve the 60 college credits, and we will use that sparingly, because we're always seeking the best, and I think people that meet our minimums currently and what's necessary to be a police officer is important. But there are those rare circumstances in which we would lose what is our best candidate if we don't see an adjustment in our minimum qualifications.
Questions? Comments? Go ahead. Tom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the info, Chief. Based on the situation you've described with this gentleman, this candidate, would there be a way perhaps not to completely get rid of those standards or requirements, but add in an element such as you described about prior law enforcement experience, which wouldn't serve to neutralize this requirement for every other candidate, but it would be something that could be considered in addition, so that almost a substitute in cases where it was relevant, because I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense with candidates like this, where they have years of related experience. Maybe it wouldn't make as much sense if they did not, but what's your disposition on that? You know, an option of maybe not eliminating this entirely, but actually adding an element where law enforcement experience could play a role.
Sure. I don't see where I would ever agree to hire someone that didn't meet our minimum qualifications for college credits and didn't have law enforcement experience to go with it. So if I'm understanding you correctly, I would be fine with removing the college credit requirement, but also including anyone that fails to meet the minimum qualification of 40 college credits that has also completed 5 years of full-time law enforcement is then eligible, or I'm not the best at reciting what the verbiage should be, but the gist is you've got 5 years of full-time law enforcement experience, but you don't meet our college credits, then you're still eligible for employment.
Thank you. That's precisely what I was getting at, and I think that sounds quite positive, so thank you.
So, so this person would agree to the minimum, you know, so within 5 years or so, 40 college credits? And also, does he have the academy in his resume?
So not to get totally in the weeds, he wouldn't need to go to the academy. Okay, so he currently has 36 college credits, of which some of those are due to him going to the academy in Arizona. So he would need to get the remainder, 24 college credits. You know, I will tell you that Chief Bliven served on the Law Enforcement Standards Board and regularly had to participate in voting on whether to decertify officers that didn't meet the college requirements by the completion of their 5th year. And I don't ever plan on finding myself in that situation. So in the rarity that we would utilize this, I would negotiate with that individual a period of time much less than 5 years to achieve those credits. So my thought is coming up with a timeline that is, for most of the year, you're taking at least one class. They're 3 credits apiece. You need 8 semesters to achieve 60, and we'd work with them on accomplishing that. But I personally wouldn't give anyone 5 years to achieve that.
This question is for the city attorney, because I think when she sent us that letter, if I'm understanding it correctly, the statute says 60 hours, but under certain circumstances, they can overlook 30 or something like that. So he would still be good even in that. Because I think what I saw too is that we couldn't go below the Wisconsin standards. Whatever we do with our minimums, we can't go below that standard. And I guess that's what I'm concerned.
Right. The minimum in Wisconsin is 0.
It's 0. Okay. So that's my question. Okay.
So we can hire someone that has no college at all, and they get 5 years, and to be honest with you, and no academy. Give them a gun, swear them in, and put them to work, and they have 5 years to accomplish both of those things. Obviously, we don't do things that way, but we're just asking to mirror the state minimum, which is 0 college credits, but knowing that we're only going to use that in certain circumstances, and I'm totally open to only considering that when the individual has 5 years of full-time professional law enforcement experience.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to ask Mr. Henderson your opinion and perspective on the matter, the issue of maybe balancing it out with the 5 years of law enforcement experience. I mean, as HR director, how do you feel about that?
You know, I think especially the way things are going now, where we're valuing experience over education, and that's statewide, federal. If you know in the news right now, I think the federal and especially state governments are actually taking college degrees out of their entire job description. So I have absolutely no issue with with using that experience, and especially when he's going to go ahead and do it anyway. I think whatever we can do to have a bigger pool, I think and still be compliant, I'm in favor of.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'll weigh in on this. I guess my concern on this is I kind of understand, why we require 60 college credits because it's not so much the depth of experience, but if I get you right, it's more the breadth of experience because we want candidates that are well-rounded in both the profession, but also in their other experiences to. As we look for, a highly qualified individuals. So, I think it's eliminating it the college requirement completely. I don't like. I want to see people with experience. First off, I guess I'm okay that if we got if we're looking at candidates, with appropriate level of or length of service experience, but I think we need to also have at least some amount of higher education credits in conjunction with that, so that we're not, hiring somebody with say 0 credits, but at least something to their in their experience level, so that then they can work and finish towards receiving whatever ultimate requirements that we have for the position. So
I mean, if I may, this doesn't negate our hiring process, which is extensive. So we're not just looking for individuals with law enforcement experience. There's people with law enforcement experience that we don't hire. It doesn't make them a bad candidate. It's just not a great fit for our department and our community. And so this is simply to make them hireable. We're still looking for the individual with a breadth of experience, as well as education, as well as professional training and experience. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be standing here asking for this if we didn't find the needle in the haystack, so to speak, in a candidate that wants to move to Wisconsin from Lake Havasu, Arizona, for great reasons. And so it would shock me if you checked with me 5 years from now and said, how many people have we applied this standard to? And that it was a large number. I don't anticipate us using this often at all because we value the same things in the candidates. So they still need to compete with all the other candidates that either have education or experience.
What's your pleasure, committee? Do you want to, go ahead, Tom?
I'd make a motion then to approve changes to the minimum qualifications for police officer if it incorporated the chief's element of 5-year law enforcement experience to balance out the lack of the college requirements, assuming that meets legal standards and parameters. It sounds like it did in Wisconsin, so.
I'll second that.
Is that okay with you, to add the 5 years experience as part of the qualifications?
I have no issue with that. I think
Okay.
that's a great addition.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Thank you all.
Okey doke. So the next three, I'm going to already just let everyone know that I am going to make a motion to table all three, but we'll take one at a time. Discussion and possible action approving creation of Administrative Assistant 2, position to be shared between the Police Department and the Fire Department. These positions were done through supplemental budget process. They did not go through our HR director for, for his looking at it with a job description, a need, salary, classification. It was brought to him, I believe, last week, these positions, and was
I think
it-
originally we wanted to have them by Friday of the previous week. And I will say there's one group that had their stuff in on Monday because I spoke and they said that, and that was great. But then as late as Wednesday, I was still trying to gather and stuff was still changing. So there wasn't a whole lot of time
right
to
right.
get it noticed.
Yeah. So I was seeing the emails coming in with extra information, and I believe HR is very important, and it determines equity within the entire city. So anybody that works here or anybody that applies here knows that the same standards are going to be applied to any position. So I am, we can certainly discuss this, but James, I want to give our professional HR director, who we have hired to do this job because of his education and experience, and I want him to feel comfortable that he didn't have to try to rush and rubber stamp something. These positions, of what I understand, were not going to start till April anyway, so we're not stopping a hiring process in motion. But what my motion will be is to table this position until James brings it back to us, but well before April, because it has passed finance, the funding portion. But if there's any type of nip and tuck that needs to be done, he would be able to give him some time to look at it, to talk to the directors and figure out what they need, and what classification is in, and then go forward. So that is my motion on the table. Yes, Tom?
I would second that, and may I speak to
Sure,
it as
sure.
well? Yes, I would just say, and it's one of the reasons I asked Mr. Henderson for his opinion on the last matter. I think, we're appreciative for your insight and experience on these matters, and I think whether it was intended or unintended, I've seen recently that it appears that has been sidestepped at times, and I'd like to see that stop. And when it comes to matters of HR, I believe you're the director, sir, and we're the HR committee, so we should all serve that role. So yes, I'd like to see you have all the time and resources you need on this.
Go ahead.
Second,
Oh, okay.
Mr. Killian's motion, right? Why was your motion?
Well, that's,
I'm sorry, did Tom second?
yes.
Sorry.
Do you want to speak, or, okay. Anybody else want to speak? Oh, go ahead, Lou.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I thank you for our phone conversations and keeping me educated up and stuff on this. My question would be is if it gets tabled, would these positions still be in the budget? I mean, because if they're not going to be, you can always, as we do things in Wausau here, I would much rather see them removed from the budget, go through the due process of Mr. Henderson doing his job, seeing if we actually need these positions, first of all, and second of all, go through the committee, council, and then do the budget modification if necessary. So I would rather just see these removed from the budget totally.
You were going to speak, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can maybe speak to that as I'm on the finance committee and that these supplemental requests came through the committee. They're not slated to start until April. So, and the funding is not there until April 1st. So they could still, that would give 4 months, 4 months time to craft the positions and then have them and have, hiring notices out and a person in place by the time the funding kicks in. So I think the only problem with removing them from the budget would be that then come, February, when we want to notice and hire somebody, then we would have to have a budget modification already at the beginning of the year, and then people would ask, well, why would we? Because we couldn't hire until the money is in place.
Right.
Or even notice until the money is in place. So that,
Well, it's not like our backs are up against the wall. It's not the ninth inning. It's not the 2 outs. If it goes beyond, if it takes beyond April, it takes beyond April. But I would just as soon rather see this done right. I see the same thing happening with our SISM committee this past year. 2 items got excluded from the SISM committee and went right to finance, which in turn could have cost the city money. And I would just like to see a due process follow through, but not only for, due process was set up for everybody, for our committees, our council, our citizens, to best serve our citizens. And that's why I would love to see this follow through with due process. I would just as soon see it removed from the budget. And as these things are approved, do your budget modifications, then do your hiring. Thank you.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. So is your tabling is just for the 2 positions, number 3 and number 5 then, is that right?
I think number 6, I would have to ask, well, when we get to number 6, I could do that as well, because I want James to speak to that. That's a handbook change, and I don't think he's looked at that either.
Well, I guess then if number 6 has a further discussion, because I just need to know, a little bit, because I think it's, because I think if it's a larger issue of I guess then I would want a discussion specifically with regard to number 6.
Okay.
We can do that
Sure.
now, or?
Well,
or-
let's get this vote through, and then we'll go, and we can do the next one, and then we can get to 6.
So your tabling is pretty much then of 3 and 5, and then number 6 would be sort of a separate issue
Yeah.
then? Okay, great, thank you.
Sure. So we have a motion to table until HR Director brings it back. Any further, just go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd ask Mr. Henderson again. So in the vein of doing things in kind of a cohesive, logical way that allows you to do what you need to do, I think one thing that Alder Larson commented on that struck me was, I guess at this point, we've essentially, it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy once it's in the budget in terms of funding, and that's before it even kind of undergoes your review to determine, is this something that's even needed? Am I correct in that regard, that we might not have even reached a point in terms of the human resources assessment to determine if we're satisfying an identified need? I mean, do we have that need based on your assessment yet?
Well, I think, kind of offline, I've spoken with 2 of these directors about the positions that they put forward. Because the PD actually got their stuff in early Monday morning, so I was able to look at that, and I was very comfortable with them adding the shared, with fire, because one of the justifications that they added was like communities, and I mean their admin staff was probably half a lot of times of what like communities are having. So I was very comfortable with that. And also in community development, Ms. Brodick and I have talked several times about her need for an admin. I think the problem from my end was that there was just a couple to where they just I was not copied on a couple of emails, and their stuff wasn't sent to me till like late Wednesday, and then it was kind of like, just trust me and sign it. And I mean, and that's not a comfortable position to be in. So, you know, to answer your question, I'm very, very comfortable with those two positions being added, because offline I have spoken with those directors and with people in those. But again, I think we're talking about a procedure going forward, so we're not here again next year with, you know, people trying to cram stuff in at the 11th hour, maybe hoping that I missed something and then they can just get through with it.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion to table this item, which is that one, until he can come back with it with a recommendation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We're on to the discussion and possible action approving the addition of administrative assistant 2 position for the Community Development Department, which again, I will make the motion to table until Mr. Henderson will bring it back with his recommendation and his full review. And I will point out that one thing that I noticed, and I'd like Mr. Henderson to look at, is the it's an admin 2, and to keep equal, they're asking for an associate's degree and a ton of experience. And
I can't remember these. I know that they did, or they were asking, but I think, and again, this is where I think slowing down is going to help us, because when they got that job description that was actually written 3 or 4 years ago when they were trying to do it, and then I think when they said, hey, you got to have your justification, they just kind of reached back and just pulled that out. But I think now we're going to be able to just take a closer look, and I can give suggestions, and that, because that's really what I can do, is just give suggestions to what I think would be appropriate.
yeah, so. Okay, thank you. Second. Any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, last one, discussion and possible action amending employee handbook section 5.17 to include standby pay for municipal fleet technician. No, I was wondering if there was any discussion, but you have a move to approve that?
Then I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. Okay.
Because I would just like to know a little bit more about the background.
Yeah.
because,
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's one and so would I, because on this item, I knew absolutely nothing about it. And at the end of our council meeting last Tuesday, I was approached about approving it, and I'd never even heard of it yet. And not to say that, I mean, but I was like, I'm not going to approve something that I'm not even, you know. And so the next day, I received an email from the finance director basically saying that this had been, again, at the budget mods or whatever, the meetings that they had talked about this and said it was okay. But, you know, I didn't know anything about it until that point. So, I mean, when you're talking about background, I would like to have a little more background on it also. And I think we've got the Public Works people here.
Yeah, this was just trying to add basically one fleet position to our on-call staff. So we have, in our street department, we have people that are on call 24 hours a day. If there's any need in the city, they have a phone number they can call, get a hold of someone. And we were just trying to add one more position on the motor pool division so that we avoided some of the confusion when we get calls from like police, fire, something like that with a piece of equipment that's down, they need help, they're calling the street on-call staff who knows nothing about it and has to kind of transfer the information, get a hold of someone in the fleet department, and then, you know, track stuff down that way. And we've been having a lot of trouble with, you know, information getting transferred and getting delayed, and so then it just takes that much longer for police, fire, or anybody in the city to get their equipment serviced in a timely fashion.
Go ahead, Gary.
So is this in the budget, or does this begin January, or is
Yeah,
it in the
this was-
2024 budget beginning in January, then, this position?
Yeah, this was a request that Solomon had put in for this next year's budget so that we have the money in there, because obviously it's going to cost the on-call time to pay that person to be
Right.
on call, and we'll have to get them a cell phone. stuff like that. The change to the handbook was just simply adding another person to that list because they have a specific list of what divisions can have people on call and stuff like that.
Well, I question the lateness of it, but I think that this is still an important position within our public works. So could this be, for instance, on the agenda in December? Can we table it till December? Because because with winter and all, I think it's important that we support our public works people, and I think that this is sort of something that that I would want to encourage. But I think at the last minute, I think we do need to come back and review it. Give us another month, and then we can look at it in December.
And I'm not sure why it was delayed because I'm pretty sure Solomon had this in and everything. I think it just got missed for putting it on the agenda.
Yeah, the idea first came up, I want to say it was at the end of September or the beginning of October, when we were starting to have some challenges with the med units at the fire department, and we were continually having these issues trying to get a hold of people on the weekends. We got med units that are down, and we don't have a clear path on communication to get those units back going on the weekend. So the handbook actually lists in there that the director can add an on-call position at any time to any division, up to 3 months only. So we thought, okay, that'll take care of the rest of the year, but to go forward, can we get something in place because the service is really needed? So then there was discussions between me and Eric, Dustin, and Marianne if I could put this in for a supplemental request. So it was put in for a supplemental request on time and whatnot, and it went through. So then the question towards the end was, okay, so it was approved essentially for the budget of next year. Can we get something in place for the rest of this year following the handbook and then making those changes for the forward years, seeing that we had the additional funding because we were low on employees this year. So that's how the step went.
Go ahead.
But I think, and again, and I'm not against any of this, but I think the issue is, again, it came through finance, and I hadn't heard anything about it, and then I was just asked to sign it. And matter of fact, it was, well, Peggy was going to change it, and Peggy says, well, I can't change it without the HR director's permission. And then it was like, well, James, you just need to tell her she can change it. And, I just don't really do good with that. It's not that I'm against it. I would just like to have more information so that I can make an informed decision since since that is my, that's under what I do. I would rather just not have it coming down through Peggy and through Mary Ann and I think in our conversation that we had that night, I told you, well, Peggy doesn't report to me. Peggy reports to Mary Ann. And so, then the next day Mary Ann sends me an email. But again, I think we're talking about procedure. And these are just small tweaks I think that we can make that'll make everyone's life a lot easier.
Go ahead, Tom.
Madam Chair, yes, I would second that, and I think we need to start going through proper channels, not just with committees, but as we just heard, with department heads and making sure they have enough time, so I support that. But also an important layer of that, and it's becoming a theme or motif, not just tonight, but apparently throughout the entire history of Wausau in this building. It's, finance is there to fund policy, not to craft it. And time again, it's doing both. And we need to start putting a stop to that because it's created kind of a reign of fiscal and policy terror. So let's have them fund policies that policy bodies find appropriate, but not do both. And it's not your issue, gentlemen. I'm sorry this may cause a delay, but I'd say it is finance's problem. So yes, let's address that. Let's make sure that doesn't keep happening. And then as Mr. Henderson has described, let's give him and others the appropriate chance and time to do these things. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will tell you, I totally support this. I know what it's like, and I've been working with DPW a little bit, and these gentlemen do need everything that they're asking for. I'm not sure if this is correct in me saying, but from the best of my knowledge, I think the phones that have been used or being used are their own personal phones. No, you don't? No, okay.
No,
so-
we have on-call
You
phones
do
for
have on-call
staff,
phones, okay,
yeah.
I stand corrected. But I do support this, and I really feel that, yes, fine if you want to delay it and take a look at it and come back in December, but I think we need to address this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Right. Will December be enough time?
Yeah, that's plenty.
Okay.
Plenty.
Perfect. Perfect.
For future, just for my own understanding, so when we're bringing requests forward, like when we do our supplementals, we do CIPs, all this stuff, do we need to come to the individual committees before we put any of that in, you think? Is that a better way? I guess I'm
think-
trying to understand, because in the
I
past, like
think
we've
you
always
should-
had,
Yeah,
like,
I think you should always, if it's personnel, go to the HR director, keep him in the loop. I
Okay.
think that's, you
I
can
guess
do both.
it was, for
And
me,
I-
it was just
yeah.
confusing sometimes, because we
Yeah.
have like supplementals, and they have a
Right.
section right in there that says if you want staff, you go here.
Right.
And I guess, so I just need to understand like the process to make sure I'm
And
doing
that's
that. I
what
don't want to exclude people,
That's what
but.
we're trying to do,
Yeah.
is kind of standardize a process. I think this is the only time it happens is at budget time and the
Mm-hmm.
supplementals, and it just kind of exploded this year. But I think going forward, we will get a process together and make sure everybody in the departments know. You know, nobody, I don't think anybody's against any of this. We're not,
Mm-hmm.
but it just, we got to do procedure. HR is a legal way of doing things, and so that's all it is. But Mr. Henderson will have it ready for next month. You guys, you said Eric has the authority to do it over the winter, so it'll be,
That's one thing if I could touch on.
sure.
I think that there's just two separate things as well. So this one that was brought forward is about changing it going for the future.
Right.
I apologize if there was some confusion. When we reached out to Peggy about changing the pay, that was because we talked to Eric to make the determination it was okay to do that. And then we talked to Mary Ann to make sure that there was funding still available in our budget for the rest of the year because we were short on employees at the beginning. So because they had the okay to
yeah.
do it, and then the funding for the rest of the year, we just wanted it for that 3 months for the rest of the period of the year until then. So that's when we reached out saying, hey, you know, these guys, they would like to have that option now. They're allowed to have that option. And then it kind of got mixed into, we were talking about changing it for the next year, and I think there was some confusion
Okay.
there. We would like to get somebody on call following the handbook procedures for the rest of this year because we already got snow once this year.
Yeah.
But talking about changing it indefinitely in the handbook going forward, I think is another conversation as well, which this mistakenly played into so quickly.
Okay. Okay. Well, we trust James will straighten that all out.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Go ahead.
I am just real sorry that this happened, because it sounds to me like they really and truly did what they were supposed to do. And I do hope that we can address this very
Yeah.
quickly, because winter's here.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
And it's, if it hasn't been, it's on its way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, it's my understanding they won't be missing out on anything. We just won't be changing the handbook. So they'll still be able to do whatever they need to do because they got the budget for it. But we won't be changing the handbook to put this full-time fleet person until next month.
Okay,
But
perfect.
they've still got
Yeah.
they still can do what they need to do.
Super, thank you.
Okay, well, I just need a vote then. Gary's packing up, so I need quick, I quick need a vote. So we have a motion and second to table till December. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Okay, now adjournment, and then we can let Gary go. Motion by Killian, second by Martins. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.